All right, so today I'm going to try to, one, catch us up on time a little bit and show you the efficiency of Kamailio and how we can increase time. But the talk today is improving performance of FreeSWITCH with Kamailio. So with what? Kamailio. This is how you pronounce it. Kamailio. It's a very difficult word to look at and come up with how do you pronounce. It's a Hawaiian word, and the Hawaiian word means to converse. One of the ways that I'm going to catch us up is the history of it. Quickly, who am I? I'm Fred Posner. I've been working in VoIP probably since 2005. I got into it using closed source systems, Broadsoft and Acme Packet, and hated it. I had grown up loving telephones, and it destroyed it. It destroyed my love. It made me want to kill myself. So because of some problems with Acme Packet, we found OpenSARE, and this was back in 05, 06, I think. And I fell in love with OpenSARE. It solved all the problems I was having with this top-of-the-line proprietary product. And then from there, we went into Asterisk, and then at an Astricon, I met Brian, and then found FreeSWITCH, and now all totally open source. What is Kamailio? It's a SIP proxy server. It's a SIP registrar server. It's a SIP location server, SIP application server, SIP dispatcher, SIP WebSocket. It's SIP. If you look at the pie chart, the blue is SIP, the orange is not SIP. So it's pretty much 100% SIP. What it isn't is it's not a SIP phone, it's not a media server, and it's not a B2B UA. But what quickly that we work with that could be all those three things, FreeSWITCH. A super brief history of Kamailio. Started off in 2001 as a SARE and became OpenSARE in 2005. There was a fork in 2008, and we have Kamailio. There's also OpenSIPs. And so there's a shared history up to a point there. And again, I'm going to go through these to catch time. The project leader is Daniel, or if you know Myconda on Twitter. Very active community. We have a very active IRC channel and mailing list. We try to be as friendly as possible. It's a worldwide product. There's lots of different languages. Everyone tries to speak English, and we try not to get on people understanding that English might not even be their fourth language. Big thing though is we're 100% open source. The Kamailio at its core, we're written in C. It's a modular design. So like many of the other proxies and everything like that, it handles NAT. It can connect to Lua, Python, Perl, Java, C#. So if you have a programming language that you like, you can connect to it with Kamailio most likely. Authentication can happen internally via database, Radius, however you want it. You can use SQL engines, you can use NoSQL engines, and it runs as a multi-process instead of multi-threads. So at its core is a SIP core engine. Then we have modules, and then modules let you connect through to pretty much anything you would want. There's new modules coming all the time. We use one main configuration file. You need a strong understanding of SIP. It runs as, it uses its own type of configuration language. It looks like C. It uses if, then, else type statements. So if you're familiar with those, the configuration file will already make sense. But the big thing is where most people get confused on looking at a configuration file is SIP. All right, so what is Kamailio? Kamailio is fast and powerful. We can run stateless, or we can run transactional SIP. We can do IPv4, IPv6. We can bridge between the two. So if you don't want to deal with IPv6 on your local network, but you need to for whatever reason on this one, we can put Kamailio there and go ahead and bridge it. We could be a gateway for different IP and protocols as well. Some of the basics. Why do we love Kamailio? All right, well, on a run-of-the-mill box, just nothing crazy, nothing that's going to break your bank. You're looking at 5,000 calls setups per second. I mean, just simple. If you have 4 gigs of RAM, chances are you can have over 300,000 registered users. All right, that's awesome. On the little embedded systems, I love little embedded systems. Even if you had a Raspberry Pi, you're talking hundreds of calls per second. So it makes it a great endpoint to have at a client's office. You can scale more with additional servers. You want 300,000 users, you can add more RAM, increase it, you can add more servers. You know, with the low cost of hardware that you need to run Kamailio, you can scale incredibly. And again, it's one simple config file. So where can you use this to help you with FreeSWITCH? That's the whole point of this, right? We're here because we probably use FreeSWITCH. So how can Kamailio help you with FreeSWITCH? Well, first, it can help you with security, it can help you with high availability, and it can help you with traffic direction. Security is really something that we should all be familiar with. I mean, chances are if you're making a system based on FreeSWITCH, you're probably connecting to the internet. If you're not, then, I mean, I don't know what you're doing. But you're connecting to the internet. If you have something on the internet, you're getting hacked. I mean, it's simple. And nothing is hack-proof. There's nothing out there that's hack-proof. We all know this. But Kamailio can help you by saving some of these FreeSWITCH resources and just adding another layer for your security. Talking about security, just some of the things, since Kamailio handles the SIP, you can really get into where you want to go into the SIP. So the $UA is a method of querying the user agent. So we can look at the user agent real quick, and if we don't like the user agent, right, because 95% of the script kiddies out there, you know, when they run SIP vicious or they run something like that, they're not changing the user agent, right? So we could look at that and just go, all right, drop it. Don't respond, don't use any resources, just ignore it. Or you can even say, all right, let me send a 200 OK and just close it and move on and save some of my network resources. And there's different theories about what works best there or not. I like now doing the 200 OKs because I got hit really hard and the drop it and forget it wasn't as effective as sending a 200 OK. My Kamailio never suffered, but the router was a lot happier when I was sending 200 OKs. We have a module called pipe limit that allows you to just count different things that you would want. So for example, if I want to say after 10 failed registrations, I'm blocking your IP for 20 minutes, I can do that with my Kamailio config, and I can change that as ever I need it. Pike is a built-in module that detects attacks, flood attacks. You can use H tables, which is a great use of memory tables, right? We can use those to go, okay, has this person attacked me? I'm going to block them for 5 minutes. Okay, they were already blocked for 5 minutes and they're still attacking, I'm going to block them for 20 minutes. You know, however you want, you can use these H tables to work with the pipe limit and count different things and make extremely powerful counters and tools for security. We have built-in geo-IP, so you can just say, all right, I'm not letting China IPs in whatsoever. Or South America sometimes, which my wife is Colombian, so it's very appropriate sometimes for me to block all of South America. But there's a lot of different things that we can work with and increase your security. So here's an example, just using SIP-P. I took just a run-of-the-middle, so it wasn't a hardened FreeSWITCH config whatsoever, and it wasn't a hardened Kamailio config. Okay, the one at the top is the FreeSWITCH, just standard. I threw 10 calls per second at it. It jumped up to right around 12% CPU. All right, 6.5% memory, but you know, and you can see that that system was running for a long time. Right around 12% CPU, throwing 10 calls per second at it. Now these were bad calls, but you know, FreeSWITCH had to do a lot of things in the standard calling. I threw it at Kamailio, and I couldn't get it to a point where I could make a screen capture because it was using such little CPU. So then I threw 100 calls per second at it just to see what would happen. It still used less than 2%. And then what you see there on the bottom is when I threw 1,000 calls per second at it, and I used 2 processes, but each one was less than 2%. So it's fast, and it does it very efficiently. So right there, I'm taking 1,000 calls per second. Okay, none of them are good calls. They're all random numbers being sent just to find out what I can send through the system. If you've ever been hit by one of these from Amazon or someone that has a good powerful system to you, I've been hit by something that's hit me at well over 500 CPS. And my FreeSWITCH won't get any of those. So right there, I don't have to worry about even running my FreeSWITCH security because I'm blocking it. And I'm blocking it efficiently. Some of the ways that we do it within the config file, and again, this is an example of how the language works, and it makes it extremely simple, right? So here's just SIP message inspections. Okay, so on this one, I'm going to use a combination of just looking at that and H tables. All right, so on the first one, if it says friendly scanner, if it says SIP vicious or SIP CLI, and it's not me doing it, I'm going to set my IP tables to ban it. So right there, I mean my H tables. I'm going to say, okay, right here, here's my H table of named IP ban. I'm going to set a flag to 1 with this IP address. I'm then going to send them a 200 OK, so they think that they got it, and they'll move on to a different attack, which is really fun to watch. Because you say, oh, okay, we can send calls, and then you see a lot of legitimate calls going in there, and I'm really hoping that they're charging people for it, because I'm just sending okay to every call. It's fun, so hopefully they're losing money. But it's just sending okay, and I'm dropping it. So boom, okay, drop. On the bottom, that's an example of a SQL injection through a username. So if my username has any of these kind of characters in it, just go ahead, block it, and drop it. Send it a 200 OK and then drop. And I'm processing nothing. That takes no CPU whatsoever. And then the nice thing is before there, I have a check where if the IP is banned. Then just send the 200 OK and go from there. So I don't care what they send me after that. Just do it. And so, again, it's just fast, efficient. Gets the problem done. The other great feature of Kamailio, assuming that we've already, blocked out 90% of the people trying to get free stuff from us, is load balancing. Okay, FreeSWITCH can handle a ton of calls on a box. All right, that's why a lot of people like it. I get calls, hey, we want to run 2,000 calls on this box. And, it's the same, my follow-up to that is why. It's the old, Jurassic Park. Just because you can, you didn't think if you should, okay? And it's not that FreeSWITCH is going to be the problem there. It could be a power, look at Delta, right? It could be a power issue. It could be a hardware issue. Why do I want to lose 2,000 calls at once? I mean, I don't. And especially depending on who those calls are. If they're residential users, you lose 2,000 calls, you've lost 2 days of support. Because they're just going to call in and just destroy your support center. Oh my goodness, I had a horrible call, and they're going to talk for 10 minutes about it. Business users, same thing. Maybe I run 5 or 6 FreeSWITCHes and split the difference. And you can do that by putting Kamailio in front of it. And you can customize how you're going to load balance here. We have built-in algorithms that you can choose what to base how you're going to throw to what FreeSWITCH server on. You can also load balance to your carriers in the same way. And you can do a check of the load. So if I have, for example, carriers that say, well, you can't send me more than 10 calls per second. Well, using that pipe limit, I can figure out how many calls per second I'm sending at that carrier, and then go, okay, well, let me then move to the next one down the list, because this one's maxed out, or this one's already running 50 simultaneous calls, so now I need to go to the other one. Instead of having multiple FreeSWITCH boxes all looking at the same problem, just send it to Kamailio and have that do one logical test. Some of the algorithms that you can use to go ahead and choose your load balancing rhythm might be call ID. That's kind of your standard one, where it's just almost like a random. But you can also use your from URI and to URI. And any of the URI ones are very good for trying to keep calls together. So if I'm going to put all of my calls from one office or one phone number on a single box, if I do something that's in common with the algorithm, they'll all go on the same box so they can park a call, and then the next call to it should match. You can also use a custom string for that, so like a domain name. So you can send all office calls to the same FreeSWITCH box, which is good. I could use just a random round robin. I could do it based on username, so that a user should always be going to the same call. Kind of good if I'm doing a single user with part calls. Random, that's a pretty, can't tell what that one is, right? All right, and then the PV strings is, anything that you come up with yourself, any kind of variable. You can also do it based on priority. So you might have a really good FreeSWITCH box that's top of the line, and then you have this one just really needs to go if this one's kind of maxed out. So you can do it based on priority, based on weight, based on call load, and even relative weight. So I want to say, okay, I have 3 boxes and I want to try to get a third of my calls on each. Sample deployments. So this is where Kamailio can really try to help you improve your performance. So here I have the internet or the PSTN. I'm going to connect to Kamailio, and then at that point I'm just going to send to one FreeSWITCH. So I have 2 FreeSWITCHs instead of using, and there'll be a talk coming up on FreeSWITCH using high availability, but you're just kind of doing it with Kamailio here, where I'm just going to send it all to the active FreeSWITCH. If that goes down, boom, it goes to the next one. So this, I'm just using it as a simple failover. So I have one in standby, just goes to that. Very quick change. And now I have those 2 working together, and I'm just load balancing between them. What I like about this is they're running. You're keeping everything going well. When you start doing it with different ways like this is really good when 1.8 comes out. Okay, well, why upgrade 2 boxes? Let me upgrade 1, throw 50% of my calls over there, see if I'm having any complaints. Okay, and start seeing, okay, did anything in this migration break? Or when I go to change a new type of, a little dial plan change or a little modification change, see what breaks. And this is ideal for me. I can also scale with it. So, if I can run 2, I can run 6. Okay, so it's just boom, just N+1 kind of architecture. And the only thing you have to do in Kamailio is just change an IP. Just add an IP or remove an IP. The FreeSWITCH you can then deploy on your own, take one down for maintenance, do however you want with your deployment. This is my real preferred model. Where this model also goes well is there's a lot of clients running Fusion PBX, and they might give access to their clients, or maybe even hosting it, just like you're hosting your own Fusion box. Okay, well, maybe I'm running out of IP space. So what I can do is I could put the Kamailio in front with the public IP. All of these are behind, kind of natted, and then have Kamailio just send it to whatever FreeSWITCH I want based on that domain name. So I have, this, the top left corner, let's say, is for company 1. The bottom left corner is for company 2. and then Kamailio just dispatches it as it needs to go. Woo. You can also change how you're doing it on these deployments. So I might have 2 dedicated FreeSWITCH boxes that are just for conferencing. So a call comes in, I'm going to dispatch my conference to either of these 2. I'm going to handle 1 for voicemail because voicemail uses nothing, right? So I'm going to handle 1 for voicemail. I'm going to use the other 3 for just standard calls. Or maybe the conference one will also handle, hey, I got a Kamailio request. I now have to record every call that comes into this guy, so I'm going to use this as a recorded type of FreeSWITCH, and this way I can give access to the proper ones and allocate my hardware where needed. With the modules, I can also put a lot of offload onto Kamailio. So I can even improve my performance of FreeSWITCH by taking some of the needs that it needs to do away from it. FreeSWITCH is amazing at transcoding. Okay, I know that we tend not to because it uses CPU, but it does it really well. Okay, Kamailio does not do it well at all because it doesn't do it. It doesn't handle the media. So what I can do is offset some of the functions that FreeSWITCH might do that I don't need it to do. I really don't need FreeSWITCH to connect to a SQL database and check something because I can have Kamailio do it. So by the time Kamailio gets the call and gives it to FreeSWITCH, FreeSWITCH doesn't have to look up anything. It can just do what it does best, handle the media, handle the call, make a good, clean sounding call, and get me no complaints. I could have it do JSON requests. So I could have Kamailio go out, send out whatever, pull out, process that information, go from there. Lua. People like Lua. I'm old and fat, so I use Perl. But Perl works well as well, but I'm playing with Lua, and I know and I start getting into Lua, honestly, because of FreeSWITCH. And you can do a lot with Kamailio with Lua as well. So you can run pretty much all of your calls through Lua, and that's where we're headed. So you could run a process, run whatever kind of Lua script you want, send it to FreeSWITCH, and then have FreeSWITCH run a Lua for the IVR, let's say. But you've already handled all the lookups pre the IVR, and you know which IVR to send it to, you know how to handle that. You're just reducing what FreeSWITCH needs to do, which improves how many things it can do of what it can only do. I talked about the embedded devices. So some have huge offices of maybe 30, 40 clients. It was starting to get where you're getting big, maybe 200, 300 calls, and you're trying to connect them to your FreeSWITCH remotely. Okay, that's a nightmare. All right, and it's not a nightmare for anything that's your fault. It's a nightmare because of the ISP they're using. It's a nightmare because of they don't want to spend $500 extra and get a real router. They want to be as cheap as possible. Well, we have a cheap solution, a little embedded Kamailio. So we just send all calls to one box, and then it distribute to those phones. Those phones can register all to Kamailio. Kamailio can then just forward what it needs to the FreeSWITCH. Maybe once every 8 hours, just remind FreeSWITCH, hey, this is where it's registered. Then when it sends it to the user and presence, all that just works because you're just still handling that all through FreeSWITCH. It's just being proxied by a little Kamailio box that's running on their network that costs less than $5 a year in electricity. So it's fantastic. It's a great way to stop a lot of your problems when you have a good amount of phones. From the Kamailio site, when you start getting into really large deployments, this is where we have a lot of fun. And I know it's hard to see, but you have Kamailio as your main center core, and that's processing, the SIP of what it needs to do, and then you can have different servers handle different aspects. You can have a server dedicated to, media, a server dedicated to messaging, a server dedicated to SMS, a server dedicated to video. because video's, going to use up more bandwidth. I can send it to certain nodes that might do well. Since Kamailio, I'm going to go back to this one, can also work by sending SQL and sending things out through the other modules, this is your great start for getting geo-redundant systems. I can share location databases. Okay, if something's there that's down, I can forward it over where. These free switches don't need to be in the same local LAN. I can put them in different regions of the world. I can go and based on the geo IP send it to a different free switch that's closer to them for the media and then have the media go directly to them. I don't have to proxy the media if I don't need to. So you can start really doing complex deployments, and you can also, again, share that information with other Kamailios. So I could have a Kamailio in New York, one on the West Coast, one in Chicago, just because we're here now. Different things like that. I've tried to catch us up in time, which means I went over a lot of these things quickly, but that leaves a lot of room for questions. One of the things that I did in 2010 was open a bakery with my wife. One of the benefits is that if you ask a good question, you get a Kamailio cookie. So ask a question, get a cookie.
What's our cookie policy here on accepting cookies? And oh wait, we're not in Europe. We don't have to worry about that.
Earlier when you were doing the performance testing, just trying to confirm, was FreeSWITCH in bypass media mode at that point?
No.
Okay.
FreeSWITCH was handling all the medium.
Okay. Are there any good, a follow-up, any good, really good Kamailio sample configs for certain types of deployments? And where would those be located for folks who are?
Okay, all right, that's a cookie kind of question. All right, so the are there good type of configs? All right, the main sample config, the main config that you get is heavily commented and has a lot of different scenarios. So the first one will handle 85% of your uses, and that number is off the top of my head made up. So it'll handle a good amount of what you need for it. Inside it has also other types of configs that you can go, and it's just in one of the example documents, such as doing the edge proxy, where I'm just taking the clients at a business site and then forwarding them off. There's an example configuration, because that's very different than the main one in there. There's examples on how to do TLS, and there's examples on how to do other types of deployments. And also with Let's Encrypt and Kamailio FreeSWITCH, there's really no reason why you can't run TLS everywhere. So
yeah. Hello, Fred. Fred. This
yeah.
side. This
okay.
side. Yep.
There you go. Sorry.
Yeah, is there any way to find out how many CPU cycles one particular call takes, and further down to one particular packet like invite, trying, acknowledge, how many cycles they consume for one call?
Okay, is there a way to find out exactly how much CPU time one specific call did? I'm sure there is in a debugging type of mode and with sending comments and logging. I've never done it to that level, so I would defer to. I bring in other people to get that much, because I've never tried to figure out exactly how much one specific call and went back and go, oh, that took me 12 cycles or something. Instead, I look at where's my bottleneck and just try to handle generalizations. Usually when you're running Kamailio, you're not at the single call per call type of analysis. You're at, oh, okay, well, I have 4,000 calls right now. My bottleneck is CPU, and that's the big thing, is because, and we see this with FreeSWITCH. Yes. One call might be nothing, 2 calls might be nothing, 5 calls might be nothing, but then when I run that 8th call, now I found a problem. And so it's one of the reasons why I've never tried to do something like that, is only because when you hit the threshold of a problem, it might be not related to what you're doing with a call when it's low volume.
And which tool you're using to generate the traffic for testing, for calculating all these things?
For
Because,
any type of graphics I do is a pen and paper and a scanner. My favorite tool for just looking, if you need to look at SIP calls coming in, if you haven't done sgrep or SIPgrep, I'll figure out the name in a minute. But I love that one. I think it's,
Okay, we've got time for one more question over here. Somebody.
that's a cookie though.
Yeah. How do you know during load balancing, how do you know that one free switch is not responding?
Okay, so during the we send options to FreeSWITCH. So there's two ways. One is that I sent the call and it never responded. Okay, so that's absolutely one way. I have a timeout because I sent an invite and the invite didn't get answered. Another way is that the FreeSWITCH just stops responding to SIP options. And at that point, it's your call. You can either just continuously ping it until it comes back up, or you can take it offline and leave it offline and send you an alert, and you know, and then you have to go fix it. And there's different reasons to go for different ones. I'll be around. I have more cookies, so I'll handle any more questions that come up. And thank you all very much. I'll get
Thank
with
you.
After.